They say chains are made of iron, but the strongest chains are invisible, woven from the thoughts we believe about ourselves. One man may live as a beggar, not because life gave him nothing, but because his mind told him he had nothing. Another may rise to riches, not because the world gave him everything, but because his mind convinced him he could create anything. Napoleon Hill once declared, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." But here is the painful truth: most people never achieve greatness, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they are trapped in the prison of their own thoughts. This is the story of one such man, a beggar who lived at a railway station. To the world, he was hopeless. To himself, he was powerless. But one single idea shattered his prison walls, and in 6 short months, he transformed from a man who begged for coins into a businessman who commanded respect. And it all began with a single question: what do you have to give? In a crowded railway station lived a beggar. Every day, he stretched out his hand, pleading for coins to survive. Most ignored him, some gave out of pity, but none truly saw him. One afternoon, he noticed a sharply dressed businessman step onto the platform. With hope in his eyes, the beggar rushed forward. "Please sir, spare some change." The businessman looked at him calmly and asked, "Do you always just take from others? Have you ever thought of giving something in return?" The beggar was stunned. No one had ever spoken to him this way. "I am just a beggar," he muttered. "I have nothing to give." The businessman shook his head. "That is where you are wrong. Poverty is not in the pocket, it begins in the mind. If you think you have nothing, then indeed you have nothing. But if you think differently, you'll see you always have something to offer." With that, the businessman boarded his train, leaving the beggar with a seed planted in his thoughts. That night, the beggar could not sleep. The words echoed. "If you think you have nothing, then indeed you have nothing." Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Every great achievement begins with an idea." The beggar realized he had been living as a prisoner of his own thoughts. He had accepted the identity of a beggar, and so he became one. But what if he thought differently? What if he chose to see himself not as a beggar, but as someone who could give, someone who could trade, someone who could create value? For the first time in his life, he dared to imagine a new possibility. Days later, he noticed wildflowers blooming near the railway tracks. Their colors were vibrant, their fragrance sweet. A thought struck him. What if I give people a flower every time they give me money? The next day, he tried. When passengers dropped a coin into his palm, he handed them a flower with a smile. To his surprise, people lit up with joy. Some gave more, some returned just to see him again. Napoleon Hill called this principle the law of reciprocity: you must give before you can receive. And the beggar had just discovered it. Soon, he realized he was no longer begging. He was trading. He was in business. One evening, while handing out flowers, the beggar saw the businessman again. This time he ran up proudly. "Sir, today I have something to give you." The businessman accepted the flowers, gave him money, and said with a smile, "Now you are not a beggar, you are a businessman." That night, the beggar's desire grew stronger. He no longer wanted to just sell flowers at the station. He wanted a shop, a business, a future. Hill wrote, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." This desire became his burning obsession. And with obsession came discipline. He saved every coin he earned. He woke early, picked the best flowers, and treated every customer with respect. At first, people laughed. A beggar running a flower business? But it's true what they say. What the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. He visualized his flower shop daily. He imagined himself wearing clean clothes, greeting customers, and earning respect. Slowly, faith replaced doubt. With time, he rented a small corner to sell flowers properly. His customers grew. His reputation spread. What began as a single flower at the station became a blossoming business. 6 months later, the beggar, now dressed in a neat suit, was boarding a train for a business trip. On the platform, he met the same businessman who had once questioned him. The man's eyes widened in shock. You were the beggar." "Yes," he laughed, "but today I am a businessman. You planted a seed in my mind that day. You taught me that poverty begins in the mind, and wealth begins in thought. When I changed my mindset, I changed my life." The two men shook hands as equals. Life had taught him this truth. 1. Thoughts are things. What you think about, you become. 2. Desire creates direction. Without desire, you drift. With it, you rise. 3. Faith moves mountains. Believe in yourself even when others doubt you. 4. Imagination builds reality. Picture it until it becomes true. 5. Action transforms dreams. Without action, even the best ideas remain illusions. The beggar-turned-businessman smiled as his train moved forward. He had learned the greatest lesson of all. When you change your mindset, you change your life. If you enjoy this story, like and subscribe for more inspiring stories.